Welcome to another Soccer Down Here 1v1, and it's time for Jason to head back up to the Children's Healthcare of Atlanta training ground and catch up with one of the folks in the front office for Atlanta United and see if you can figure out who this individual is. Representing the national team 79 times over 12 years, one of just 3 collegiate players chosen to join the squad in 1990 for a World Cup, was on the 92 Olympic team in Barcelona, 3+10 in 79 appearances, including scoring in the 93 Copa America and in the 1998 World Cup qualifying. Attended and played soccer at UCLA, helped the Bruins to their second NCAA national championship, earning All-America honors, inducted into the UCLA Bruins Hall of Fame in 2016. Who is this individual? It is, in fact, Chris Henderson. And we go back to his first year of being attached to the men's national team, 1990, and finding out what it was like to be one of 3 collegians to be a part of that U.S. squad for the 1990 FIFA World Cup. Here's Jason's 1v1 looking back at 1990 with Chris Henderson.
You were part of the first U.S. World Cup team that went back to the tournament in 40 years in 1990. What was the 1990 World Cup like for you?
Yeah, I mean, first we left New York City. We went and had like a bus tour through Little Italy, and it was just packed with fans saying goodbye, like wishing us well. It was a really cool moment. I was, like we were excited to like, hey, you finally felt like, okay, this is the team. We're heading over. And then when we got to our first 2 games were in Florence, and then, our first game was in Florence, then we had a game in Rome, and then back in Florence. And so we got to Florence, and the security, was noticeable when we arrived. Mm-hmm. It was during the Gulf War, and we went to a town called Tyrrhenia. Well, sorry, going back, we flew first to Switzerland in St. Gallen, which is like southern Switzerland, kind of near the border of Italy. Yeah. And we trained there for a week. And for me, I was full of confidence, and we came off the under-20 World Cup. There was 3 of us there that did well at that World Cup. And I was like, oh, I'm going to play. I was excited. And the 2 games leading up to it, I scored a really good goal I think it was against St. Gallen, in a scrimmage. And then I subbed in against Switzerland, and we lost 2-1. And they were a really good team. They didn't make the World Cup, mm-hmm. but we played them, and they were a really good team. So it was a tough test for us leading into the tournament. And then we arrived in Florence, and we're training in Tyrrhenia, and we're training at I think a U.S. base.
Oh wow!
And it was protected. There was guards all around the fences. There was dogs, on the sides, and security of our training field. It just felt like we were not able to leave there, like you were in a camp. And everyone was nice. The food was excellent. And we started training, preparing for our first game was Czechoslovakia. And, we've talked about how those results played out, but we didn't have any pregame scouting of them.
Wow.
It was the one team that we didn't have very much information at all. And this happened when we were at the Under-20 World Cup. It was the same staff that was with us in the Under-20 World Cup was the staff of the 90 World Cup team. Mm-hmm. And we didn't have, usually, after the first game of the tournament, you scout that game, you get all the information. This is back in 1990. Yeah. So, there weren't any pre-scouts who had seen them play. We didn't have any video. So we were just focused on ourselves. And that's what I mean. It was just I don't think the U.S. Soccer Federation at that time had the resources to okay, we're going to watch check play for the 5 games leading up to it,
Right.
and scouting, and it was just like, video and getting games on TV out of there was not easy either. So we just went into the game with really no idea, and that's when you're walking in the stadium and you're looking at these guys who are 6'3", 200 pounds, muscle, strong athletes, just, you have this realization like these guys are men, and they're, they were looking at us like these guys are kids. I think, Stolmeyer and Windishman was 24, our captain. Stolmeyer was probably the oldest guy on the team, but we're all in our 20s and low 20s. So that's kind of the beginnings.
Yeah. I'm glad you mentioned somebody like Mike Windishman, because I feel like at times we forget how important he was in this era and how important he was in this team specifically. Just as the captain of that group, how vital was he to that World Cup experience?
Yeah, I mean, it was the first, I think the first 1 to 50 caps. And he, he was a leader. He was a, New Yorker, like he was a straight shooter. Like, he was not afraid to say what he felt to anyone. And I think that's what made him kind of a captain, that he just, he'd hold people accountable. All I remember as a 19-year-old is that he never went in the middle at 5v2. Even when he screwed up, he was like, no, you go. I'm not going. So there was some of the guys who, they were just like, I'm the veteran. I paid my dues.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah.
What is this kind of time frame like for guys? I mean, the U.S. right now is a couple of days, about a day and a half away from the opener. 2 hours or two days from tonight from the opener. You've had really all of your important training sessions. It's kind of fine tuning now. How stressful is this time?
It's more excitement.
Okay.
I think not as much stress. I think as a player, you just want to play games. You get tired of training and video and meetings and, team camaraderie, and you're like, let's just get on the field and start playing. And, once the game kicks off and you're out on the field, it's like every other, it's big, but it's another game, and you're going to give everything, and you've done all your preparation, and they will go into this game prepared, knowing exactly what they need to do, based on they've already played Paraguay. They're doing all the research. I think it's more just like, hey, come on, let's go. You're nervous about, are you going to start? Are you going to be on the bench? What's, are you going to be one of the subs coming in? Like, everyone has their role. Mm-hmm. Some guys are like, hey, I'm just going to support the guys. That's my role. And then other guys are like, I know I'm going to start, and it's just about preparing and getting ready. So I think everyone kind of is in a different mindset of what their role is going to be. But yeah, you're just ready for it to get started. It's pretty cool. I remember watching, I think Cameroon played in the very first game in 1990. And I remember the team, we all sat around in the dining hall and watched the game. And, once that first game kicks off, then you're getting even more excited. You're like, this is great. Look at the crowd. You get, you see guys out there just come, ready to, like, they've been training for 4 years for this. And, it's just that energy that comes at the start of the tournament.
So we know how Game 1 went in 1990 against Czechoslovakia, but Game 2 is one of the maybe biggest performances up to that point for the U.S. men's national team against Italy. What was that game like for you, watching that play out, where you stood toe-to-toe against the hosts of the tournament in their capital?
Yeah, I mean, I was on the bench for the game and just sitting there, one, hoping I can get in. Yeah. And then two, just there was, it was a packed Olympic Stadium in Rome, and everyone had the Azzurri blue on, and there was like Italian flags flying all over the crowd. And these guys, I literally had posters of the AC Milan guys on my wall at UCLA. And so, Donadoni was there, and Baresi, and Vialli, and these guys were, they were legends of the game. And, Serie A was, one of the biggest leagues in the world at the time. And, we're playing against those guys after kind of getting crushed in the first game. So, we went into it just like, hey, let's just give everything. We had a big fight at training. Guys were chipping at each other.
Yeah.
The fight was like a mob of players and fell into a goal. And but after that, we had a meeting and we all came together and we knew we had to push for each other, and we didn't have anything to lose. We had to do the best we could. And they missed a penalty, and Peter Vermes nearly scored on one that went through Zinga's legs and was rolling into the goal and got cleared off the line. So we felt like, hey, that was a respectable result against the host country and Italy, who had won the World Cup recently before that, in '82. And so we felt good about it. And when we drove from Florence to Rome, there was a helicopter it circled the bus the whole trip.
Oh, wow.
And there was armed guards in a car armored car in front of us, armored car in back of us. Like, it was clear how tight the security was on this bus trip. And then when we pulled into the stadium before the Italy game, all the U.S. fans were there. And it was, I think Alexi Lawless was there. And all the the fans who had come to support the U.S. team was there with their flags and red, white, and blue. And it was a really cool feeling to pull up and be like, I feel like we're in the World Cup now with this crowd here supporting us.
You mentioned the security for that tournament, and I think we forget about that at that time, just, with the Gulf War going on and everything happening. It was a really tight security situation, because I remember other teams talking about this as well, feeling like you were on a military base in your base camp.
Yeah, and you don't feel like you're in the actual tournament, like the festivities of being in a World Cup or it was similar in the Olympics when I was in the Olympics, and you have that we're kind of secluded here. It wasn't until after we were out of the tournament that you felt like, I'm feeling what a World Cup is like.
Right.
But our families were all out, and they sensed it and could feel it. Warner Fricker, the owner, flew all of our families on a plane over to support us and be with us. And we're appreciative of the Federation doing that for all the players. So we all had support there with us, but yeah, it was a tense time. It was, and you realize, you're just focused on playing and getting ready for the World Cup. But then when you realize, how tight security is, you're like, I wonder if there was any threats on the team.
Right.
You start to think, this seems like a lot around our camp.
So you get through the first two games. It's Austria in game 3. I know you were chomping at the bit to get on the field. What were the conversations like for you at that point with Bob Gansler and hoping you'd get to play in that tournament?
Yeah, not much. I was the youngest player in the team.
Right.
I think the youngest in the World Cup, or one of the youngest in the World Cup.
You and Casey were around the same age, right?
We were both 1970. He was a January and I was a December.
Gotcha.
So
Okay.
He was about a year older than me, even though we were born in the same year. So we Yeah, the feeling was just like I got to train as hard as I can. I got to show it every day. I got to be ready. You never know. Halftime, we'd be warming up out on the field, staying ready. But it was one of those at the end. It was like, maybe I came for just, for the experience, and it's looking towards 94. Because at 19, and being so young, maybe they didn't know what was going to come. And it was a year after things had gone so well in the Youth World Cup and under 20s. And, we lost in semifinals in overtime in the semifinals. And I had 2 or 3 goals and assists, and, it went really well. So it was, now I'm with the full team and kind of playing my part as a young guy and just working hard and keeping my head down and, just trying to do everything I could to show I should get on the field. So it wasn't a lot of conversations with Bob at that point. It was more just, doing my best. We scored, I think Caligiuri scored against Austria.
Oh, it was Bruce. It was Murray.
Oh, it was Bruce, yeah. Maybe Cal scored in the 5-1.
He did.
Yeah, Bruce scored. And, it was another one where they were just like, we didn't know much about them. They were big, strong, technical. And we were, we had mixed at that point. We had mixed up the lineup. I think Jimmy Banks had played. Maybe Chris Sullivan got in. There was some guys who hadn't played. Brian Bliss that maybe came in the game that didn't play much prior.
So after the tournament's over, it's such an interesting time for U.S. soccer, and we've talked about it a little bit, all of the documentaries that have come out in the run-up to 94. But I'd love to ask you about the time frame right after the tournament when the team comes back. Everybody in the federation is trying to figure out what's next, knowing that hosting the tournament is down the road. And you have that transition from Bob to Bora, and there was a long time in between that a whole bunch of guys came through the national team program. What was that experience like for you after the World Cup in 90, really before the team starts to get settled for 94?
Yeah, one thing on 90, I remember we were there and Giorgio Canaglia was there, and he played, for the Cosmos. He played all of his, I think Lazio was his team there, but he was, I don't know, he got interviewed in the media and he was saying there's no way the U.S. should host a World Cup. They don't even have a first division pro league. And I remember our coaches, Gansler was so angry coming out of the press conference because, he was like, hey, Giorgio made his living in New York playing, and now he's ripping on the U.S. hosting the World Cup. Like it made us look amateur, and then the results of everything. So coming out of that, there was an excitement that, one, we wouldn't have to qualify for 94, so we'd have this really long run up. 2, we had I'm sorry, someone was sitting next to me.
No worries.
But we had this long run up, and then as things changed at the next vote for the U.S. presidency, kind of out of nowhere, Rothenberg came out of nowhere.
That's right.
And there was a split in a lot of the support. Like some of the people who were kind of with the Federation had gone on kind of the Rothenberg side, some were on Warner Fricker's side, and Gansler probably would have been the coach leading up to 94. I think that was probably the plan. And then when Rothenberg came, there ended up being a change. They wanted to bring in their national coach and Bora and someone who had experience with the World Cup teams. And then my best years in the national team came from 91 to 90, leading up to really 91 to 94 were my best years. Mm-hmm. I think I had 10 assists with the team, and I got probably 65. The bulk of my caps for the national team came in that period with Bora, and Bora and I had a really close connection. And for me, I learned the most from him of any coach I've ever played for.
Wow.
So we had players coming in, all the MISL players, Fernando Clavijo, Bruce Savage. There's many indoor players who came, Brian Quinn, who came into the team, and they were really good players because that league was really strong. And they just added to the team, and it added to the competition. And I felt like all of a sudden the pool of players got a lot bigger. And I think it made a lot of us better because we were like fighting every single camp. And then we were all in residency in Mission Viejo, and we pretty much trained twice a day for 2.5 years. And, between trainings, we'd be watching and breaking down video and doing things on the board. And we had so much. It was like soccer school with Bora. And, he did something I had never seen before at the time. He would write on the TV screen where players should move, where they should go, and then he'd erase it all with the dry erase. And every once in a while, he'd have a Sharpie, and it would stay on the screen. And someone would have to figure out how to clean that off. But he really... he was just a tactician, and I think there's so many players who went through that period with Bora who made a living in the game as coaches, as directors, as just, I think from that period of learning together under him.
It's such a fascinating time, and it's been cool to kind of get an inside the look at with these documentaries that have come out, talking to you and others who have reminisced on that time. It's such an important time for where we are today, I think, too, because all of that growth and all of, like you mentioned with Bora, all those players that had that opportunity have now gone on to develop this generation that we're seeing today. How important was that run from 90 to 94 in your mind to get us to today and where the game is as we go into hosting another World Cup?
I think it was important in that it led into the start of MLS. Mm-hmm. And you look at people like to. I'll do a short thing on MLS. People like to look back and say, what was the MLS like way back then? It was almost all of the U.S. national team players were playing in the league. Yeah. There was 10 teams. There was top players who came from the 94 World Cup, Echeverri, Valderrama, Alvarez, Jorge Campos. Like, there was a whole bunch of players who were really good players who signed from their countries right into MLS. And so when you think of the 150 spots for players, it was super competitive to get in teams back then. And there was a few U.S. national team players still in Europe, but for the most part, they were all playing in the league. So it was a higher level than people imagine.
Oh, 100%.
And I feel like that stretch into 94, from 91 to 94 is when all the prep leading into the World Cup, all the sponsors came in, Sprint, MasterCard, Adidas, like they were all involved in things with the players. And not only the men's team, but also the women's team.
Yeah.
And kind of the women's lead up to their success in 99 and everything prior, we were doing all kinds of appearances together with them. So I think it was a really important time for growth and building of confidence. And our results were pretty good leading through there. I think tactically we had a plan. We had a way of playing to get results, and we were growing and learning as players. And, when we would bring back say the Tab Ramos or Roy Wagerly or, Ernie Stewart's, the guys playing in Europe who were regulars in Europe, that it just added to the group, having their experience and those guys competing for positions with all of us. But it was a really unique time for U.S. And yesterday I went to the National Training Center and I'm just thinking, like, this is so far from Mission Viejo to the two fields and the one little building we had. And I was just so proud of like, it was beautiful, like perfect fields, amazing place to work and building. And so, yeah, it's just, it was like full circle, you know, from like where it was to where it is today.
How special was that yesterday? We'll kind of end with this, getting a chance to see three guys with Atlanta United Academy experience, one in the first team right now with Cooper, Dominic, who's been great for Atlanta United 2 this season, Braden, who came all the way through the academy, now at Furman, and all of them played really well for the US U19s yesterday.
Yeah, I thought they did too. It was, Javier Perez was there as well, and we were really proud just to see our guys out there. We were the only team in MLS with three players that we had in that team, and I thought they all performed well. It was nice to see Dom's mom was there, and Braden's parents were there, and it's just, you know, you realize how young they are, but everything is in front of them, and they continue to grow, continue to get better, and you know, I looked at both of them and I'm like, well, I'm happy to see you for the next 10 years at Atlanta United. And they all smiled. But it's good to know like the future's in front of them, and they're every time they're putting on that US jersey, there's the pride they have and representing your country at every level.